In the northwest corner of South Vietnam, nestled among 4,000-foot high mountains, steep ravines, and thick jungle foliage, rests the small valley of Khe Sanh. At this time in history, it is calm and peaceful, but for 2 months in 1968, it was the scene of one of the most bitterly fought and highly publicized battles of the Vietnam War. For 70 days and nights, a determined group of 6,000 Marines and Allied troops held out against a besieging force of 20,000 North Vietnamese. Was Khe Sanh worth it? Why did the U.S. military command feel it necessary to defend this outpost? This is its story.
Many times I'm asked what part I think Khe Sanh will play in the history of our country, and it's almost impossible for me to evaluate it since I was so close to the situation. However, I can tell you a little bit about it, and perhaps the place we should start is with an orientation of its location and some of the features around it. Khe Sanh, as you know, is located 8 to 10 miles from the Sapone River, which is the boundary between Laos and South Vietnam. It's south of the demilitarized zone and has around it certain hill masses which control some of the infiltration routes coming down in this general area. And of course, Route 9, basically the only road in this area, runs from the Laotian border, continues on through and goes almost to the coast of Vietnam. In about April of 1967, the battalion surprised an enemy element on this particular hill mass, and eventually it resulted in the Marines seizing Hill 861, 881 South, and 881 North. After these had been seized, it was determined that a small unit should be placed on Hill 950 in this general area here, so that when August of 1967 rolled around and I took over the base, I found myself with troops on 881 South, 861, and 950.
By December of 1967, intelligence sources indicate that 2 North Vietnamese divisions are assembling around the base at Khe Sanh. The Communists could be preparing for a major assault. If the base is to be defended, it will have to be reinforced. The decision is made by General William Westmoreland, top commander of U.S. forces in Vietnam. The Marines will stay and fight. The U.S. begins shoring up its own defenses. Units of the U.S. Navy construction battalions are already at work on the airstrip that will bring vital supplies to sustain the garrison. Marines are busy digging trenches and building bunkers. As reinforcement battalions begin flowing in, planners try to strike a delicate balance between having sufficient men to repel an attack and too many to supply by air. The weeks that follow are relatively quiet. Marine units continue their patrol operations with very little enemy action.
Khe Sanh was an important outpost. If the enemy had taken this outpost, I think the province of Quảng Trị and the DMZ area would have been in jeopardy. If he could have seized that plateau, he could have run trucks with ammunition, logistics, and even conventional artillery into the Khe Sanh plateau, and certain of our installations further to the east could have been made untenable. Now, We saw the enemy building up his forces in order to siege and eventually overrun Khe Sanh as he did Dien Bien Phu in 1954.
Khe Sanh and Dien Bien Phu. The comparison is natural. In August of 1954, French paratroops had moved into the Viet Minh stronghold, then a part of French Indochina, located in North Vietnam. Bringing in heavy artillery, tanks, and equipment, they prepared for the communist attack led by the North Vietnamese general Vo Nguyen Giap. But the French found themselves outmanned and outfought. They were surrounded, cut off from their source of supplies and reinforcements by a superior artillery, crippled by a lack of air power and crushed relentlessly in Giap's powerful nutcracker. The end was inevitable. The French were overrun, forced to capitulate. The defeat brought an end to nearly 10 years of the Indochina War. 2 months later, the armistice agreement was signed at Geneva. Vietnam was partitioned, and French influence in Southeast Asia collapsed. The Russian communists were quick to congratulate the victors, Ho Chi Minh and his brilliant general Giap. Now, 15 years later, the same General Giap is determined to repeat his victory at Khe Sanh. By January 1968, the stage was set. Inside the 1 by 1/2 mile perimeter of the Marine garrison were 6,000 U.S. Marines, a battalion of South Vietnamese Rangers, and a handful of Air Force and CB support troops. Burrowed in bunkers and hidden under the triple canopied foliage that covered the surrounding slopes was the largest and best equipped force ever mustered by the enemy. 20,000 North Vietnamese Army troops.
On the 19th of January, there was a recon patrol which had gone out in this general area north of Hill 881 North and ran into considerable trouble, and it really developed into quite a tense situation, but eventually we were able to get them out and brought them back to Hill 881 South.
The next day, a full Marine company is dispatched to deal with the enemy force north of Khe Sanh. They run head-on into a battalion of North Vietnamese regulars. The fighting continues all that day, but by nightfall neither side has made any significant progress. With plans to continue the assault the following morning, the Marines return to their base camp on Hill 881 South. They are jolted awake the next morning by heavy mortar, rocket, and artillery fire. The enemy has also launched a simultaneous attack on nearby Hill 861.
And that no sooner got started than down here in Khe Sanh village, CAC unit came under attack by about a battalion. So we had 3 things going at once, and naturally my concern was with all of these forces which are around me. As you can well imagine, I began to become concerned that they might start closing the base.
The siege is on. The Americans counter with massive artillery strikes of their own. Allied aircraft began bombing and strafing enemy positions in the hills surrounding Khe Sanh. U.S. commanders know that Khe Sanh is only one part of the North Vietnamese offensive strategy. The Americans are sure a larger attack is coming, but they can only guess at the timing. They guess wrong. The North Vietnamese surprised the American forces by launching a vast, sweeping offensive on the holiday of Tet, the celebration of the Lunar New Year. Shocking numbers of enemy forces strike in more places than the Americans could have imagined possible. The North Vietnamese had been clever. The buildup of forces and ensuing attack on the remote base at Khe Sanh was in large measure a diversion. While Khe Sanh was strategically useful, most of its value lay in its ability to keep Allied aircraft preoccupied, while North Vietnamese forces conducted their vast offensive elsewhere. The Americans had taken the bait, dedicating hundreds of fighter bombers to provide air cover to the Marines surrounded at Khe Sanh. But after years of fighting a frustrating guerrilla war, General Westmoreland was thirsting for a classic military battle. The commitment had been made. The Marines would make their stand at Khe Sanh.